How did you do it? If you made millions, did you just keep your money in the bank and didn't expect them to worry about it? Did they not worry about it? Was it not enough to kind of create a scene?
Not only did I'm gonna tell you how I did it. I'm I'm gonna explain how most of those drug traffickers that I work with did it. We didn't. We rather have cash money than anything else because we know the United States government is going to come take everything.
We had an interview recently,
Mm-hmm.
and the big part of this, we haven't released that interview yet because we're still kind of
Okay.
we're building that interview into something bigger.
Okay.
And the big part of that interview was money laundering. And, you as someone who lived in the United States, who, was, you were pushing a lot of weight and there was a lot of money coming through your area. How prevalent is money laundering, which I know it is in the cartel and drug space, but in your experience, what are some of the money laundering schemes that you notice, but as well as there's so much money. I imagine there's banks that go from there's one bank that I saw in a small town went from one bank to like 20 banks within a few years because it seemed like the money they were getting for money laundering, it was partnering with cartel and whatnot. And so could you enlighten us on a little bit of that?
Well, in terms of money laundering, so there's different types. What you hear a lot about is banks and wire transfers or ways to drug lords or drug trafficking organizations to hide their money, and this is a little bit confusing at times to someone who doesn't understand it. But what I believe should be the issue, right, is that a lot of these conversations that we have about banks and where these drug lords have their money, what they actually do to launder it, I think there's a confusion because to me and my organization that handle literally billions of dollars worth of drugs, there's no way to launder that type of money. I was one of many drug trafficking organizations, and all that money goes back into the business, and money is laundered. If I was laundering money for myself, you know, for me to actually, use my profits and put money and make it legitimate so I could reinvest it, that was very small compared to the large amounts of money that's actually being handled. Um, right. And I, I believe that the story sounds good when people are believing that, someone goes to a bank in the United States and, pulls up with a truckload full of money and gives it to the bank. Um, I, Most of those transactions are going to be done more as a personal, like for a personal kind of gain. If we see the reports of an mentor's wife being like money launderer for the cartel, and what I see is that she's being a money launderer for her, for for the profits that they're receiving, for the profits that they're gaining, and how they want to legitimate, and make themselves legal. But there's different means. You see the trading system between China and drug traffickers in Mexico, where the money doesn't move. They basically need to pay for precursors in China. The Mexican drug cartel will receive money in different cities in the United States, and instead of going through a wire transfer, they'll just have Chinese citizens give them, the money in China, and they'll give them the money here in the U.S. And I believe that that's why you see so many migrants being from China. That opened the door for them to take their money out of China because it's illegal. They can't take out more than $50,000 at a time, or $50,000 um, from their bank account. Now it gives them an opportunity to come, to the United States and have that money if they sell some of their assets or launder the money that way. So there's different schemes. For sure, it's either um, used by shell corporations for large fee to be able to transfer it to Colombia and you put it in their system, or they'll find a banker in Spain, and the percentages are real high. There's so much money to be made that they'll take the risk. From Spain, a money transfer, if you're going to pay for someone to launder money and get you the money back into Mexico, just say you're going to pay 12 to 16%. And we're talking about, millions of dollars. Any legitimate banker or banking system or company would jump to that for the opportunity to be able to make money off of that.
How did you do it? If you made millions, did you just keep your money in the bank and didn't expect them to worry about it? Did they not worry about it? Was it not enough to kind of create a scene?
Not only did I'm gonna tell you how I did it. I'm gonna explain how most of those drug traffickers that I work with did it. We didn't. We rather have cash money than anything else because we know the United States government is going to come take everything. The dollar is what's most important, especially when you're talking about drug trafficking. When you're working at that level, you basically need every dollar to be responsible for the amount of drugs that you're moving. There's a lot of money that we actually just kept it in the business. And when we needed money, we'd pull it out. And the way we'd save it would be how every other drug trafficker saves it. You dig it up somewhere. Some people have just bigger hiding spots. There might be containers, in Mexico, in ranches full of, nothing but $100 bills. And they just continue to put the money back into the business, reinvest it. It takes money to have sicarios and buy weapons and vehicles. So it works a little bit like that.
Have you heard in recent years them using anything like the new, cryptocurrencies?
The way it works is that it works with a bunch of like subcontractors. And I know that there's networks that are using cryptocurrency, especially when it comes to web, when they use the web to sell drugs, and smaller, real independent, smaller drug trafficking organizations. That's how they're moving the money around. But when it comes to major drug trafficking, and we're dealing with the cartels, like you can't go and take a cryptocurrency on a hard drive and pay a drug lord with it, or pay a politician with it. If that makes sense. They want the cash. They don't want any possibility of paper trails. And somehow, some way, you'd have to, just say if you had $30-40 million in a hard drive, then you have to worry about getting the money back in dollars, because everyone wants to get paid. You're going to have, the person that jumps to drugs across the border, smuggles those drugs across the border, he takes a percentage. The transportation person takes a percentage, and so on. So it's a lot of splitting up the money that a hard drive and cryptocurrency wouldn't make sense to us in that large scale. And I'm talking about what I know, major, large drug trafficking, distribution, and hundreds of millions of dollars, or not billions.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me talk about Firecracker Farm and their hot salt. You probably heard other people talk about it as well. If you haven't tried it yet, let me just tell you, you're missing out on some serious flavor. Their hot salt is delicious, and it really makes pretty much anything that you put it on even more delicious. It's hot, but when you use it in moderation, it's not too hot, and the flavor that it adds enhances without overpowering. It is handmade, super premium, and comes in awesome stainless steel push-button grinders like the one I have in my hand right here. You can take them anywhere. Hot sauce, if you've had this experience, can very easily overpower other flavors and always runs out quickly when it's good. Hot salt lasts and lasts. The push grinder holds over 500 plus pumps, and when you consider the refill it comes with, it's thousands of servings, and it's a great deal and a lot cheaper than the sauce. For those of you that like flavor but hesitate because it might be too hot, you can mix it with sea salt to tone it down and still enjoy the awesome flavor. In my personal experience, you can modulate how much comes out of the dispenser. You're in total control of the amount of heat you serve yourself. So if you would like to support our show and give Alex and his family business a shot, head over to firecracker.farm. and use the code Ironclad to get a 15% discount on your first order. You will be very glad that you did. Firecracker.farm.